John Huston's final documentary about the war was produced in 1946. Let There Be Light is an unnerving depiction of the psychiatric treatment of U.S. soldiers who had sustained a debilitating mental trauma during the war. The film had an unexpected result when it was completed, one that not only upset Huston, but resulted in its being banned from public viewing for over 3 decades.
Huston had been given the charge in the making of the film to report on events that were occurring at a psychiatric hospital in New York, with the idea that if the general public was educated to the possibilities for psychological rehabilitation in these hospitals, they would be more willing to accept them back into their community again. And Huston himself said that he was attracted to this topic because he had seen firsthand the impact of war psychologically on the soldiers.
I followed one group through the hospital. Having stayed in the hospital for some time, I thought that would be the best approach.
On behalf of the commanding officer and his staff of Mason General Hospital, I want to extend a hearty welcome to all of you on your return to the United States. There's no need to be alarmed at the presence of these cameras, as they're making a photographic record of your progress at this hospital from the date of admission to the date of discharge.
At the time, psychiatry and mental illness was kind of a new thing for Americans. And their idea was that if a soldier had any kind of mental problems and received a mental discharge from the Army, that they were crazy.
This was my introduction into psychiatry. In the hospital, I had excellent psychiatrists to turn to and ask questions of.
We will see that you don't die. You won't die.
What they were doing was putting a fire out in an attempt to restore the men to more or less the condition they were in when they came into the Army.
The thing about Let There Be Light that's so dramatic when you watch it now is how universal it is.
It says here on your record from overseas that you had headaches and that you had crying spells.
Yes, sir. I believe in your profession is called nostalgia.
In other words, homesickness.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
It was induced when shortly before the war, I received a picture of my sweetheart.
When you listen to those guys talk about their experiences, it's very intent on creating a kind of intimacy with the psychological problems of soldiers, which is a brave and difficult thing to do.
I'm sorry, I can't continue.
That's all right. Rip it.
Dad was genuinely interested in people. He didn't regard those soldiers as numbers. He regarded them as individuals, each with their own particular character, problems, whatever it was. And to realize when you do send men off to war that the consequences are not only on the battlefield, they're all the way through society.
You know in the Bible where it says, man does not live by bread alone?
The doctors were extraordinary with them. As a matter of fact, that was the theme of their recovery. Love. Reassuring the men and advising them as to how to go about finding it.
But after he finished the film and showed it to his superiors, they realized what was going on was that this was a portrait of what happened to average soldiers when they entered battle. If they managed to come out without any physical injuries, they were still being destroyed mentally by the experience of the horrors of battle. And that's not the kind of message that they would want to have seen by the American public after World War II, and that's where he got into trouble. And that film was basically banned from being shown to the public for almost 35 years.
That dealt with what they called at the time battle fatigue. Nowadays they've named it post-traumatic stress syndrome. So there could hardly be a film that's more relevant than a film made in 1946 on battle fatigue and is discussed today as post-traumatic stress syndrome. You have soldiers coming back from Iraq, you have a generation of soldiers from Vietnam. So the topic is very now, even 60 years later.
One of the things that I think is so powerful about the Huston films is an honest, open communication between people who have served in the military and everybody else. Because we're a democracy, because they go as representatives of us as a nation, I think it matters how well we understand what they go through. And having a real, clear, and honest, unvarnished picture of the experience of being a soldier in a war is important to us as a country.
Winston Churchill said that people who don't know their history are forced to relive it. The documentary photographer tells history in a way that the man at the typewriter cannot tell history. This is the way history should be told.
Part of what makes an art form rich and mature and grow and flower is a sense of its own history. Whether it's Nanook of the North or Battle of San Pietro, I think it's really vital. I think it's to the detriment of the entire world of filmmaking and documentary in particular to sort of lose track of these things.
The importance of being able to see, especially for a documentary where you see real life of 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's very important to preserve these moments.
When they were colorizing Dad's early films, Maltese Falcon was one of the notorious examples. And Dad said that this was a record of the time at which it was made, and to colorize it was to demean the work that so many people had done at that moment. And in particular, when we come to the Second World War, when so many people sacrificed their lives and put in so much effort to defeat what was rampant evil. That kind of heroism needs to be remembered.
Preservation is something much more than a mechanical thing. Whatever someone cares about, he or she will be moved, be they a decent, fulsome human being, to try to do something to save it.